Gorm 20 times over instead.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different trees that you can take your village on too. I think that would change up the game considerably.
Yeah,
if with different plays.
I don't have a whole lot of experience with the expansions, but they do manage to break up the formula just enough, I think. Now, that's asking you to send more money after a game that's already pretty expensive. But, given that, as Walker says, this is a game that you're going to want to tuck into with your friends, maybe you can split the expense, or maybe you're just a generous idiot with too much money like me. But then, if you all go in together, or again, if you get a chance to try it somewhere, I don't know where that would be, it is an interesting experience, and it is very much unlike a lot of what else is on the market. So I do not begrudge it its success, and I look forward to my continued playing of it.
All right, how many players would you think this plays best with?
To be frank, I've done it solo. I've done it with 2, and I've done it with 4. I think the one number that definitely doesn't work is 3. You can play it with 5 or 6. There are ways to do that. I would not recommend it. I haven't done it myself, but based on the way the rules work, I don't think it's a good idea. 3 is a bit awkward because every time you go to fight, you take 4 people, or 5 or 6 if you're doing it the ill-advised way. I think there are cleaner solo experiences available. It was good, but I'm kind of spoiled with solo games, so I would play something else. I know that some of the people we play with, one of the people we play with actually is the guy I played 2-player with, and he swears by 4-player. He vastly prefers 4. I think 2 and 4 are both equally good, honestly. The better aspect of 4 is you got more people around the table, and you get to have more input, and people get to collaborate in a shared story. But the downside is somebody dies, they're out.
Exactly, true enough. And with that game that's that encompassing, it'd be nice to share it with more. I agree. I think 4 people is the sweet spot for sure. You wouldn't want to try it with 2? No, I'm definitely a player that enjoys focusing on my own character instead of trying to multitask multiple characters. I in that type of game, I know there are certain games where there's no asymmetry at all, so it doesn't really matter. You can play multiple sides, or if I'm forced to, I don't mind it, but I'd rather just focus on one character at a time. Fair enough. I can respect that. That actually does allow me one more thing, one more detail that reminds me of one more thing. The story that Kingdom Death tells is very much about the world. It's very much about the environment, and not so much about the people in it, because the people in it keep dying. And that can be, again, that's one of the differences it has. That's one of the ways it's so unique as compared to the rest of the market. It's not precisely calibrated to my taste. I like character-driven stories, but approaching Kingdom Death Monster as a character-driven story is a great way to be disappointed, because the person you like is going to die. I think in our campaign we're going through now, all the original survivors died several sessions ago. Correct. And in fact, I think we're stuck mostly with newbies. True. When I was talking to one of the other players about it, I said the best way to look at it is do not concentrate on your actual characters. Concentrate on the gear. The gear is the character. You sort of you start making your sets of gear, and that sort of becomes the character. Okay, this is your character, is the gear, and then you just put it on a particular host, and off they go. And because you get all your gear back. Thankfully, if your character dies, you don't lose the gear, so then it's ready for the next person. Brush it off, and they get a chance to try it out. So it's a game for acquisitive sociopaths. Exactly. Fair enough. All right, so those are our thoughts on Kingdom Death Monster. I think 2 very satisfied players. My perception is that a lot of people are more enthusiastic about it than I am, but that's not to say that I don't enjoy it. And as I say, it's an experience that's worth trying if you can get your hands on it. Exactly. Agreed. Well, Walker, let's talk a little bit about news. Got anything news you want to talk about? I do. I have a couple things. Betrayal Legacy. Betrayal in House of the Hill Legacy Edition has been announced. What do you got to say about that, Walker? Rob Davio. I'm sure people will enjoy it. I'm going to ask for a little more detail on that, Walker. I shouldn't say that. I've only tried Betrayal once, and I've just heard bad things about how the scenarios don't work, and how even when they did Baldur's Gate, it still had problems. And Legacy Edition, well, the little I've read about it, I've liked it. I'll read more into it, and I'll decide later. But I like all Legacy games so far, except for Seafall so far. So we'll see how that goes. Charterstone's coming up. We'll see how that goes. But so far, they've all been thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of over legacy games, honestly. Like, campaign games, fine. You know, to me, a legacy is just kind of a subset of a campaign game, and it really depends on how it's executed. So you know, the legacy elements of games that I really like is really hit or miss. So Kingdom Death Monster doesn't work without a sort of persistent campaign element. A game like Gloomhaven does work without it, and the new stuff is, you know, not particularly earth-shattering. I didn't like Seafall either. I'm kind of lukewarm on Pandemic Legacy. I think here's the thing about Rob Daviau that makes me a bit suspicious. Rob Daviau did stellar work on HeroScape. I'm still a big HeroScape fan. He did a lot of work on that with Craig Van Ness. A lot of people were involved, but a lot of his development work was really, really solid. And ever since then, I haven't really seen him take an original idea and bring it to fruition other than just the Legacy format itself. I liked Risk Legacy, but it got by on the strength of its charm and novelty, I think. Pandemic Legacy, I often felt like I was playing just a subset of the expansions that I liked. I saw a lot of the ideas reused, and the new stuff in Pandemic Legacy didn't really do much for me. I know your opinions on Pandemic Legacy are slightly different.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much. But like I said, I don't even own normal Pandemic. I've never bought any expansions. I didn't play many of them, so it was all new to me. So that's why more likely I enjoyed it more. And the second season is getting mixed reviews, so I'm not sure. Like you said, I think he's done a great job on games that already existed. On original games like Seafall, did mix. This is yet another one based on a game that is already existing. So maybe we can hope for the best.
Yeah, I share your lack of enthusiasm for this announcement of Betrayal Legacy. I mean, who knows? Maybe this will be the first time that a really, really compelling narrative story comes out of things like this, because you know, there's certainly Betrayal has always sought to be a narrative experience. Now, the quality of that is, you know, some people really like it, but, you know, like you, I'm not terribly enthused about it. But who knows? Maybe this is... Because Seafall didn't really have, I think, the basis for a compelling narrative to begin with. It was just, you know, go out and exploit some islands, more or less. I'm open to the possibility of being proven wrong, and this being a really good story, but I quite frankly don't really care about Betrayal Legacy either.
We can hope for the best. What have you got for the next one?
I've just noticed this is less about specific news and more about a general trend lately, and this is about WizKids starting to up its game, I think. Ever since they hired Zev Schlesinger from, well, formerly his own company, Z-Man, they put out Sidereal Confluence. They put out another game called Empires, which looks very promising. They put out The Expanse. They really seem to be... The Expanse was done by Jeff Engelstein. I'm always down for an Engelstein design. So they really seem to be trying to step up.
A quick note on that. They've just announced that they're going to be doing a new Magic the Gathering game.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for coming to rain on my parade. I don't really care about that necessarily. But I'm. This is a company that their components have always been shoddy, right? I mean, Mage Knight was a very unfortunate. I'm talking about the Vlada game.
Yeah, the expansions have been very disappointing. That's for sure.
Well, just in terms, I just mean in terms of the physical quality of what they put out. The card stock is meh. The minis are weird, and everything all just kind of looks kind of shoddy and rushed. And that's even true of these games that I like. Sidereal Confluence is a WizKids game, and you know the card stock is terrible. It's a game that consists of roughly two things: cards and cubes, and the cards are kind of flimsy, which is unfortunate. And the Expanse is kind of, you know, it's a licensed game. Gale Force 9 is not a big company, but they managed to put out impressive-looking products, broadly speaking. You know, whether it's they pay attention to the graphic design, they try to make the components nice. I wish that WizKids would take their physical production kind of in that direction. But all that I know is that in an increasing era of market consolidation, you've got basically Asmodee, Cool Mini or not, and, you know, that's more or less it. As far as big companies go, putting out big things. Queen used to be a big deal and is less so. Mayfair used to be a big deal and is practically dead now, which is unfortunate. I'm just glad that there's another company that's really putting in... that's really taking the time to find both work with established designers like Jeff Engelstein and find people to publish their first designs like they did with Sidereal Confluence or with Empires that look like really interesting stuff. And so I hope to see more from them.
True. And for companies that are upping their game, next one is Games Workshop, upping their game, bringing games back. Necromunda, on the way back in.
Yeah.
I did a turnaround on this. When I first saw the pics, I was aghast. But then I said, why would we want to just rehash the game that was out, years and years ago? If it was that good, people would still be playing it. Why would they just rehash the same thing over again? So I'm glad they're bringing a completely new look to it, and we'll see how that goes. What are your thoughts on the new Necromunda?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had this strange fascination with all the non-Warhammer stuff that the Games Workshop has put out. I played Mordheim back in the day. Space Hulk has been a perennial favorite for forever. Shadespire is out, and we like that. I hope that Necromunda does better than Shadow War Armageddon, which is a product they released 2 weeks before 8th edition of 40K. They put it out and have given it zero support. It's kind of died by itself.
True, I was a little upset about that part. They sort of said, we're bringing back Necromunda, and then they bring out this Armageddon, and people say, well, is this the new Necromunda? And they almost purposely just kept quiet on the subject.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Necromunda is announced as well. So take from that as you will, but it just means Necromunda, new miniatures. The base game, I think, is going to come with just the 2 gangs and a basic skirmish one-off type thing, and then you have to buy yet a separate book again if you want to do the old campaign style.
Yeah, that part disappoints me.
It's true, but I think they're trying to get this game to the table more, where the gaming night, they can reach up to the shelf, they can pull this box off the table, it comes with the game mats, you set the doors up.
That's true.
It's on your table. The average person can now bring this to the table, whereas now the advanced gamer can either just buy the book, they can go down to the gaming store with all the terrain, your tape measures, everything else, and play the advanced game, and your average Joe can just pull it out on the tabletop and play the one-offs.
Sure, but is your average Joe going to want to assemble miniatures?
And on top of that, is the average Joe going to pay, what is it going to be, $125, $100 for this base box, right?
More than $100. I think in terms of American dollars, it's well north of that. Our petty Canadian greenbacks, I think, are...
It's going to be a high count. But
yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. Like you said, we've not seen Armageddon being played.
Yep.
Well, hopefully this Necromunda will take off, and we'll go back to the glory days of having our hive gangs ravaging across the tabletop.
I'd very much like that. I will say that, just in terms of development of things, it's been a few months now since Games Workshop and FFG parted ways with their licensing arrangement. And a number of people speculated at the time, does this mean that Games Workshop is really going to redouble its efforts in trying to provide something closer to a board game experience? You and I are both miniatures gamers. We've done all this stuff before. But you're right, if this is their attempt, if Shadespire and this new kind of distribution model for Necromunda is their attempt to try to get into crossover gamers. Because I remember what it was. I started out as a board gamer, and when I think it was actually with Mordheim of all things, now that I think about it, my first foray into miniatures gaming, it's intimidating as all get out, having to be able to get all the materials to assemble them, and then all the terrain and everything. But if with Necromunda and Shadespire, all they basically say is, look, all you need is some clippers, and the rest it's going to fit together. I don't know if if
the Necromundas are pushed together, I'm not sure. The way they look, they probably will be. I think that's the way they're going. I could be wrong.
If it's pushed together, if this is sort of trying to be pitched to the same kind of crossover space that Shadespire does, that could be something. Now, then again, we don't know how well Shadespire's been selling. None of these people release sales figures. Reports from the retailers that I've spoken to have been very good, and a number of people they've already had a couple of tournaments out in the UK. So that is a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. If this is them attempting to break into a market where it's like this is a miniatures box in a game, miniatures game in a box rather, people have tried to do that for a while to varying degrees of success. If they manage to do it, then more power to them.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, for my last part, just go back on that thing where WizKids brought out a Magic the Gathering game based off of HeroScape, slow to release stuff, not promoting it, letting it die pretty well. I think they're still putting in expansions for some reason.
Are they really?
They are.
Oh,
and now they've announced yet another Magic the Gathering game, as well as this